Hey everyone. In this episode, we speak with Jacie Targett, a counseling therapist and coach who works with high earning executives and business owners, and she teaches them methods of emotional regulation, which reduces stress and improves one's feeling of freedom. Now, she's got a background in business and leadership, but also in psychology and reflexology, and she brings all of that together in a really amazing way, which helps people to reconnect body and mind. I think you're really going to like this conversation. Enjoy.
Jacie, great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. Have you ever watched the TV show Billions? Do you know what show I'm talking about?
I have not, no.
Okay, well it's a show that follows the activities of a massive hedge fund in Connecticut. But there's a character on that show, her name's Wendy Rhodes, and her job is basically to make sure that all of these super smart but kind of crazy traders and executives stay mentally fit and keep their eye on the ball, regardless of whatever stressors and drama is happening all around their lives. So my question to you is, are you Wendy Rhodes?
I was going to say, she sounds great and I want to be her. I would say that the ball I encourage people to keep their eye on is the one outside of the office.
Okay.
Or the 50,000 outside of the office. Because it's so easy when you are a busy, really focused, really high achieving executive or business owner to get so narrowed in and zoned in on what you are doing in the office and how good you are at it, that you forget you have to be good at other parts of life too. So I really like to help people focus on enjoying the benefits of the success that they've actually worked their butts off to get to. And that always translates to lower stress, better performance, and better decision-making in business.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, there's an idea that we talk about a lot with our clients. We call it the owner's trap. And it's basically, that thing that occurs when you as the business owner are just so instrumental to your business and focused on it all the time. And that ultimately results in some business stagnation, but you also never really feel free, which is kind of why we all became entrepreneurs in the first place, is to feel that freedom. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of curious, I guess that's what you're talking to them about. Can you kind of walk me through what your conversations with your clients, business owners, would be like?
Absolutely. And I love that you bring up freedom. The name of my company is Anam Saor, which is Gaelic for free soul.
Awesome.
And yeah, so
I was wondering about that.
The freedom aspect is really what I want people to be able to enjoy. And obviously I'm a business owner myself, and I fall into the business owner trap as much as anyone else does. So when I am working with people, some of the questions that I really like to ask are, in your life, whether that's work or personal, where is your most repetitive challenge? Where do you face the same stressor, the same mindset issue, or the same relational problem over and over and over again? Because that tells me, with my therapy background, and I'm a big neuroscience nerd, so I do a lot of work from a perspective of what is your brain and your nervous system firing out, and how is that actually creating the same problem for you? Like, how are you creating that reality in your life and helping people shift? So the conversations will look a lot like, what challenges are you experiencing often? And what would it feel like if that challenge was no longer there? So in a magical world where hypothetically this stressor or this thought pattern disappeared from your life, what would be different? And almost everyone gives the same answer. Everything.
Everything would be different.
Everything would be different. So then you got to drill down and really get people to get granular about what that looks like. And at the end of the day, whatever that person's sticking point is, a lot of people, it's money. I have to make more money. I have to get the business growing more. I have to be the provider for my family. Like, I have to. And the very nature of a have to mindset, it takes away all the freedom that you're striving for. And from there, we can work backwards with people to help them understand what freedom feels like in their body and practice growing that and integrating it into different parts of their life, whether it's at work or at home.
Wow. And so many directions we could take this. I guess the thing that jumped out most to me right there, well, what does freedom feel like in someone's body? I mean, what sorts of answers do you get on that one?
I am always surprised at how similar people's answers are. Because I always say to people, I don't have the answer for what freedom feels like to you. You need to figure it out for yourself, because I can't prescribe that. But invariably, I get responses like, my heart feels open. And people almost always will also follow up their description with, does that make any sense? But
Yeah.
my heart feels open. I feel tingly. I feel bright. People will say bright or light often. Light and airy. Mm-hmm. There's a physical difference. And if we were to dive into like the neurochemical side of that, it's because when you engage with these elevated feelings like freedom and joy, your body is producing different hormones and chemicals. So there is a physiological change that happens when you consciously focus on the feelings you want more of.
Got it.
And often something people will just say, well, I just don't feel, name the bad feeling. I don't feel tight. I don't feel tense. I don't feel anxious. So it can often be an absence of a feeling as well.
Okay. And it's interesting. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was kind of reflecting on my own. I'm a business owner, obviously, as well. And I was reflecting on some of my own stressors. And when I really thought about it, I was kind of asking myself a similar question to what you asked them. Like, what are the areas that really stress you out just most in life? And there were a couple things, some in my business, some in my personal life. But what I realized was like the common thread between them was it was me wanting more of something. Like the business thing, I was stressing out about getting more clients. And in my personal life, I was stressed out. I travel around a lot. And so I'm working on getting a couple of additional passports to other countries. And I want like more passports. And it's like, those were the stressors. And when I really sat down and thought about it, I was like, I don't actually really need any of this more stuff that I'm trying to get. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm just kind of rambling, but do you see that a lot?
So much. And actually part of the process where I ask people these questions, I say, make a list of the things that stress you out. And then I really work with them to help them find the core thread between all of those. Mm-hmm. It depends on the person. We all have different backgrounds. And so our core, it's going to be different, but a lot of them are similar. I am afraid of being abandoned. I am angry at people who have more than me. There are core experiences that humans seem to develop that underlie a lot of these symptoms. Do you mind if I ask you a question about that feeling of wanting more?
Sure.
Okay. So when you think about that and you start to notice the stress piling up of the more, where do you feel it physically in your body?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably and if you're sort of just asking me where am I feeling like pain in my body, like maybe it manifests in pain. I mean, I do get sore, sort of like neck, back, maybe shoulder blades a little bit. That's sort of where I feel the most physical stress, I would say. Do you think that's what is causing it?
Very likely. And our bodies speak to us so clearly, but most people have never learned how to hear that language. Mm-hmm. So when you're able to identify a feeling in your body that's associated with a storyline, you can actually go into that and I tell people, take 5 breaths and just be with that feeling, whether it's pain, heat, tension, cold. Don't try to change it. Don't try to make it go away. Just take 5 breaths into it and then reevaluate and see how it feels. And almost every single time, I'd say 95% of the time, something changes.
Yeah. And now that you're mentioning it, there is also definitely heat that comes with it. And there is also probably not a full clenching of the fist, but definitely like fingers kind of starting to want to form a fist is what's happening.
Yeah, and that's really classic for wanting more. It's a grasping, right? Grasping for more. It's so literal. Our body is so literal.
Wow, that just blew my mind. How did you go down this path? How did you become who you are? How did you get this expertise?
So I have a lot of childhood trauma, and it manifested in severe chronic pain and illness from the time I was about 2. I also, a gift from God, I suppose, had a vision that it didn't have to be that way. I just really believed that with everything in me from the time I was a young child. And so I searched and I tried different ways to heal, and I desperately wanted to understand what was happening in my body, but also what was happening for the people around me who were causing a lot of the pain that I was experiencing. No healthy, happy person hurts other people, right? So if I was seeing all of these people who on the surface were supposed to be happy and successful and they were checking all the boxes, but under the surface there was so much dysfunction happening, I wanted to understand not just how to get over it, but how to completely retrain that way of being. So I just went down a lot of rabbit holes for a really long time and ended up with what I now have as a plethora of holistic understanding of how the nervous system works and how the brain functions and how emotions are processed, how trauma gets stored in the body, how our stories, beliefs, and perceptions can completely make or break us. And then I figure, hey, our mess is our message. So I'm going to help other people work through the same stuff.
Wow. Yeah. And I was reading about your background, and like you said, there's psychology, leadership, business management, these things that you might see in the business.
My degrees in the back corner there.
Oh, nice. But then there's also Reiki and reflexology and some of these other things. And I'm like, wow, this has got to be a really interesting integration of all of these different disciplines. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how all of those different modalities work together for people. And I'm only one person and I have a pretty cool skill set, but it is limited. So I do a lot of work with other practitioners, whether it's coaches, movement therapists, wellness centers, and make sure that the people that I'm working with are getting a full body, full life support for the process that they're going through, because one thing is never going to make all the changes that need to happen, right? So the support from different angles is really important.
Okay. So I want to talk about emotional regulation, which I read about from you, and I'm assuming this is something that you teach, right? So could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit and how people can strengthen that ability?
So emotional regulation it's very layered. It's very simple, but also it's very layered because each other. When it comes to emotional regulation, the number one thing that I see, I'm sure some people would disagree with me, but what I see as the number one hindrance to emotional regulation is emotional denial. A refusal to acknowledge or admit what you are actually feeling. And refusal might be a strong word there because it's often more of a complete unawareness. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know that you are feeling angry, you cannot regulate the emotion of anger. Or if you have an ingrained belief that anger is a bad thing and you're a bad person for feeling it, you cannot regulate it. A really good quote that I read somewhere on the internet for that is, adults cannot regulate emotions that they were not safe to have as children. So if you were told to shut up and be quiet when you were really happy and joyful, joy isn't going to feel safe in your body. If you were told to calm down and stop making problems when you were angry, you're not going to know how to regulate or express anger. So there's core human emotions, and we like to complicate them. But really, there's joy and happiness. There is anger, fear, sadness, grief. And we talk about all these other feelings as if they're an actual emotion when they're actually stories that we create out of our emotion. So to summarize that, an emotion is a feeling in the body. It is a physical sensation that exists within us. And the sensation is not dangerous. The story about what that sensation means, what you have to do about it, how you have to fix it, how you're supposed to avoid it, all of that amps up your entire body and your nervous system, dysregulates your brain, changes the way that the brain waves are behaving, and causes a lot of problems.
Interesting.
So the simplest way to work on emotional regulation is to just what we did earlier. I said, how does that feel in your body? Well, it hurts if your shoulders hurt. If your shoulders just hurt and you don't create a novel worth of a narrative around it, you can handle that. Mm-hmm. But if your shoulders hurt and you start telling yourself a laundry list of everything that's wrong with your life that's causing it, that's going to be tough.
Yeah. Okay, so this is connecting some dots for me. And I like the way that you separated those two things, where you had the emotion as the feeling, and then, you know, the stories you tell yourself sort of as the response to the emotion. Mm-hmm. And it's making me think about Stoicism, which I guess I can say I practice. I read it and I try to embody a lot of the teachings of Stoicism. But I've got friends who, you know, practice mindfulness or meditation, friends who read Buddhist philosophy. And it always seems to me like at the end of the day, the common thread there between all those is that you can't let outside stimuli dictate your actions. And I guess, you know, the way that you just described it is basically you can't let your emotions dictate your stories and how you react to the emotions. There has to be like a layer of separation there where you hold back from just reacting constantly. Mm-hmm. And you can have like the emotional regulation to pause for a second before you then decide how you want to act. Are we speaking the same language?
Absolutely. It's spot on. And it's funny because we can have this conversation and it sounds so simple. And yet to a person who hasn't learned how to regulate their emotions and who still gets hijacked, the hijack usually happens before the awareness. And that is why mindfulness practices or Stoic philosophy or meditation, prayer, exercise, yoga, any of these are so helpful because those help build and create that layer in between feel and react.
Exactly.
It's impulse control.
Yeah. So how do you, are there exercises? Like how can people, I guess I know how I've practiced that over time, but how would you, if you're working with a new client who is very impulsive, how would you start helping them become not so?
The first tool that I teach most people is a really basic 2-minute breathing practice. It's quite literally to bring your attention into your body. I will often get people to focus on their heart, but sometimes people prefer their stomach or their toes. It doesn't matter. So you focus your attention in an area of your body, and then you breathe slowly in and out through your nose, visualizing or imagining that the breath is going to that part of your body.
Okay.
So that's the first 2 steps. And that in and of itself is really helpful because, like I said before, emotions are physical feelings and stories are what get us in trouble. So breathing into the body is bringing you back to the physical feeling, and you can process a physical feeling. And it's actually halting or pausing the story that would exacerbate that feeling. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm actually breathing as you're saying that and trying to push it into certain areas of my body. And it is releasing the tension like pretty much immediately from those areas, which, once the tension is released, I would think then I'm no longer kind of like captive to that emotion. And that does give me the freedom and the moments that I can actually like think about things for a second.
Exactly.
So it totally makes sense. Totally makes sense.
So, yeah. And what I encourage people to do is don't try to just grab onto this practice when you're upset. Choose 3 times a day that you do that no matter what. So when you're having your morning coffee, if you're a coffee drinker, set an alarm on your phone for 2 p.m. and before you go to bed. So no matter what mood you are in, you are connecting to your body. It's actually, in my opinion, very unproductive to only use these techniques when you're upset, because you don't want to only connect to yourself when you're upset. The point of growth and healing is to be able to be happier or to have more joy, to have more peace, to have more fulfillment. So in moments where you are feeling joy, peace, tranquility, you want to be in your body for that so that you can strengthen your own ability to hold that emotion.
That makes so much sense. Gosh. Okay. As we're talking about this, I remember when we were talking earlier, you said you live in Canada. I'm in the Caribbean. I've spent time in Europe. I know you travel around a bit. Obviously, we've both been to the US. Do you think are there areas of like, is this a global phenomenon, you think, what we're talking about, the need to emotionally regulate? Or do you think there's like a geographical, like in these areas, people have it really hard? Or is it like cities versus country? Like, have you noticed anything like that?
I've noticed what I would call like a collective energy. There's my energy worker coming out. I've lived on a couple different islands on East Coast and West Coast of Canada. And in general, there's a different feel on islands. Mm-hmm. People tend to be a little more chill as a culture. It's a little more laid back, a little slower pace. That's something that I've noticed. Something that I noticed when I spent a few months in Germany, and I found that the social environment was a lot more supportive there than what I've experienced in North America. A simple way to put it is like a lot less dramatic, where people's friendships were just friendships. It didn't matter if your friend was a male or a female. There wasn't catastrophic jealousy and drama happening all the time. And I just noticed that more in North America. Could be that I just ended up with an amazing group of friends while I was in Germany. Who knows? But I do notice differences geographically.
Okay, so North America is a great place for you to find clients. This is what
fabulous place, wonderful. I have to say, the UK is a great place to find clients as well, because that, societally speaking, Ireland as well, there's a shutdown of emotion there. So there's a large population in that part of the world who doesn't really even know what an emotion feels like, let alone how to connect to it and regulate it. So there's definitely some cultural impact on this stuff.
That's funny. Now I'm imagining you talking to some cheeky Brit and who's just like not buying what you're selling at all. Like,
I've done that. It's happened.
Oh, that's good. So I want to talk about honesty for a second, because it's also kind of clear to me that a big part of this being successful as a practice is, your client has to be willing to be honest with themselves about a lot of things. Do you ever work with people who can't be, and then do you have to kind of step in and like drop a truth bomb on them? And if follow-up question to that, how do you do that in a way that is still encouraging?
Great question. I actually have this conversation with clients before we even start doing work together. And I have the conversation about the fact that this is very vulnerable and often scary work to be doing. Part of my job in the role that I'm playing for people that I work with is to help them see their own blind spots. Mm-hmm. And before I start working with anyone, I ask them, are you in a place in your life, in your emotional and mental relationship with yourself, that you can hear that feedback and be willing to work with it and not judge yourself for it?
Okay.
So people know going into it that there's a good possibility I'm going to point out some things that they might not like about themselves. The way that I find that it works in the conversation, where it's done gently and with compassion, is truly, I cannot emphasize this enough, I have been through it. I have done things in my life that I regret, right? I have said things that were not out of love. I have made mistakes. I have hurt people because I am human. And when I point out these potential blind spots or areas where people are causing their own pain or treating other people poorly, because it happens all the time, I just think there's a trust that gets developed in the type of relationship that's there, where they know I am not judging them. I am not telling people that they are wrong or that they are bad. I know that the people I work with want to be better for themselves and for their loved ones. And because they want to be better, I know that they would rather be able to work on this blind spot and deal with some of the shame and the guilt and the anxiety that comes with seeing it, but in a supportive place, and to work through that so that they can break the pattern. And really, I do think that energy of support and like we're doing this for everyone's benefit eliminates a lot of the defensiveness and shame that could potentially get triggered in that conversation.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Doesn't always happen. Sometimes it goes badly.
I could see that.
Yeah.
So you have a website, and what would people find when they go to your website?
So my website is currently under development, but what they would find is
as of March 2024, currently under
development. As of March 2024, it is under development. It's in the final stages. Fingers crossed it gets launched in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. So what they'll find there is a couple of the courses that I'm offering. I offer a course called Redefine, where I get groups of industry unique business owners. So say a group of 5, there might be one chiropractor, one real estate agent, one financial advisor. So it's kind of a nice little networking group of non-competitive people, in addition to all of the support that we're doing. So you get a group together and we walk through all of this together.
Okay.
So that's one of the courses that they would find. I also do the occasional evening workshop for anyone who wants to join. They would find access to that and a little bit of the about me stuff. Once people sign up for a course, if they're doing something that's a little bit longer, I have a teaching platform where all of the workbooks and associated videos are available and that kind of thing.
Okay, awesome, cool. I will definitely check that out.
I'll let you know when it's
ready. Yeah, thank you. Is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners before we say goodbye?
I would just like to leave everyone with a really, really simple practice and reminder that you can either be in your head or in your body, but you can't be two places at once. So if you find yourself spinning out and you find yourself stressing and chaotic, find a way to feel your body.
Thank you. Okay. Well, Jacie, thank you so much. Great to see you and to have a deep discussion with you. Not all of our discussions are deep, and I love that. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been awesome.